Alright, so today I want to introduce you to the Lightning bug ball python. It's a pretty interesting combination. It actually consists of three genes: the pastel, the fire, and the het red axanthic. Essentially what it is, it's a firefly with the pastel and the fire with the addition of the het red axanthic to get to the lightning bug. And it's pretty amazing what the het red axanthic does. It completely changes the visual appearance of the combination. And a lot of times when you mix other genes into the lightning bug, especially dark genes, you can end up with an almost axanthic looking snake that's almost black and white and gray. It's pretty amazing. So today I want to jump over the internet and I want to show you the individual genes and how they work together to make the lightning bug and how it changes when you mix other genes into the lightning bug ball python. Alright, so I want to jump over here on Morphmarket.com and I want to start with the three genes that make up the lightning bug. And the first one I want to start with is the pastel. And if you've been in ball pythons even for a little bit, you probably heard of the pastel. It's pretty much the #1 most popular gene in all of ball pythons as far as sheer numbers. And when most people think of a pastel, they're thinking of a yellow snake. Sometimes it can actually be really super bright yellow. I'd say this is probably one of the brighter pastels I've seen. And sometimes they can be pretty browned out. I've actually produced some pastels here in my collection that are almost like a rusty colored yellow, which is kind of interesting. So the pastel is actually a co-dominant gene. If you take the pastel, breed it to something else, half the offspring come out as pastels or pastel combinations. So here is another gene in the lightning bug, and that is the fire. And it's kind of interesting when you work fire in with pastel, it really makes the pastel a lot brighter and a lot cleaner. The fire is considered to be a lightning gene, so you mix it with a lot of combinations and it'll lighten them up. And a lot of times, especially with the brighter genes, it'll make them even brighter. And the fire can be a little bit confusing, so this one's actually listed as a disco/fire, so you really can't tell the difference as far as the visual appearance comparing the disco and the fire. Essentially what someone did is they took a disco inferno, a disco fire, and they bred it to something else. Half the offspring come out as disco, half come out as fire, and they look pretty much exactly the same. But if you make the supers, the super fire is an all white snake, and then the disco is not all white, so you can definitely tell in the super form that they're totally different genes. So if you actually take the fire and you work it into the pastel, this is what you get. You get a firefly. Essentially what it is, it's a pastel that is really brightened and lightened from the fire gene. And I've actually seen quite a few fireflies as adults, and it seems like they really hold their brightness as adults. So just the pastels by themselves, sometimes they can brown out a little bit, but when you add fire to the mix, it can really make the pastel hold its brightness as it ages and matures. So if you actually take the firefly and you add the het red axanthic, that's how you get the lightning bug. And take a look at this. This is a het red axanthic, and at first glance you're probably thinking, hey, that looks kind of like a normal ball python. And let me tell you, for me, it's pretty difficult to tell the difference between a normal and a het red axanthic by itself. But when you mix het red into a lot of combinations, you can really have some dramatic influences as far as the visual effects. And usually for the het red axanthics, I'd say on average, usually your het reds are a little bit darker than a normal. So it'll have a little bit darker of a background. And a lot of times your het reds will actually have more of an open back as far as the pattern on the back, although the normals can really vary a lot. I've actually seen some normals that look almost exactly like het red axanthics. So here's what happens if you take the het red axanthic and you work it into the firefly. Take a look at this. This is the lightning bug. Quite a dramatic impact when you add the het red axanthic to the firefly. It's pretty amazing. And for some reason, all the genes work together to really give you this interesting appearance. If you actually just look at the het red axanthic and pastel, it looks pretty much almost exactly like this, but it's not quite as light. You can tell this is lightened quite a bit from the influence of the fire. And you definitely have quite a bit of contrast in here, a lot of sharp definitions in these patterns that makes for a really amazing combination. All right, so I kind of wanted to show you some of the other genes worked into the Lightning bug so you can see the effect. It's pretty amazing how you can actually completely change the visual appearance with other genes. And the first one I want to start with is the Orange Dream. And the Orange Dream is also considered a brightening gene. So if you actually mix it with the pastel and the fire, you can get a really super bright snake. And the Orange Dream can kind of trick you sometimes. It has a reduced pattern where a lot of people think there might be Enchi in the mix. I've actually seen a lot of Orange Dream Enchis over here in Morphmarket, and I'm always scratching my head wondering, is that really Enchi in the Orange Dream, or is that just a pattern reduction from the Orange Dream? Because the Orange Dream pattern can be pretty reduced. And before I actually show you what the Lightning bug looks like with the Orange Dream, I wanted to show you how bright the Orange Dream pastel fires can be. Take a look at this one. I found this one over here, and I have to say this is probably one of the brightest snakes that I've ever seen in my life. This thing is crazy. This is just the Orange Dream, the fire, and the pastel without the het red axanthic. And this is, it's pretty amazing when you add the het red axanthic what it does to this snake. So if you actually take this, add the het red axanthic to it, this is what you get. Take a look at this. It completely changes the visual appearance of this snake. So essentially what this is the Orange Dream Lightning bug. So it's the Orange Dream pastel, fire, and het red axanthic. It looks almost like a true axanthic, pretty wiped out, almost a complete black and white snake. It looks like it has one little yellow spot like a paradox right in here. Pretty amazing effect from the het red axanthic. So here is the DJI. The DJI is actually a dark gene, and when you add dark genes into the Lightning bug, you can get a more dramatic effect. And the DJI stands for gotta have it. You definitely gotta have the DJI. And essentially what the DJI does is it really darkens the background and it really jumbles up the pattern. It's one of the dark genes that is also a pattern enhancing gene. So here's what happens if you take the DJI and work it into the Lightning bug. Take a look at this. This is pretty amazing. You get snakes that are almost axanthic in appearance, and of course the true axanthic with the kind of the same visual appearance. If you're actually to make one, you actually need the recessive axanthic with 2 copies of the axanthic gene. And it's kind of a misnomer with the het red axanthic because usually your axanthics are recessive where you need 2 copies of the gene, and in this case you just have 1 copy of the het red axanthic gene, the red axanthic gene. So they actually call it het red. It gets a little bit confusing because technically it's not a recessive, and usually in the ball python world we only say het when we're talking about 1 copy of a recessive gene, which in most cases you can't see. But this one being co-dominant, if you actually make the red axanthic with 2 copies of the gene, you get kind of an almost a similar effect that looks axanthic, like a true axanthic, which is kind of interesting. So here is the leopard. The leopard is also another dark gene. And I'd say that as far as codominant genes is dark genes, the leopard is probably the king of combinations. It can make some of the most amazing combinations when mixed with other genes. Kind of the interesting thing with the leopard is you can mix it with the lesser, and a lot of times the lesser leopard combinations will have stripes on the back of the snake. Really strong stripes in about 50% of the cases. I've actually seen a lot of lesser leopards that didn't have stripes, and about half of them actually have real strong stripes. Sometimes they have like 3 stripes right down the back, which is kind of interesting. So here's what happens if you take the leopard and you work it into the Lightning bug. Take a look at this. This is pretty amazing what the het red axanthic does, especially in combination with some of these dark genes. It makes it look almost axanthic, which is pretty amazing. You can definitely tell the scrambled up pattern from the leopard. The leopard's a really strong pattern enhancing gene too. Pretty amazing. All right, so here's the last one I want to show you, and that is the cinnamon added to the Lightning bug. And the cinnamon can be pretty variable. It's probably one of the most variable genes in ball pythons. Sometimes you can have cinnamons that have kind of this reddish color. You can see a little bit of red and like a coppery color. You can actually have some cinnamons that look like almost like the dark het red axanthic, like a really dark normal. I've actually seen some cinnamons that look pretty much like a dark normal. It's kind of crazy. And then when you actually take the different different versions of cinnamon and work them into combinations, you can get really different results as far as the visual appearance. So here's what happens if you take the cinnamon and you work it into the lightning bug. Take a look at this crazy thing. You're like, hey, what happened to my lightning bug? Essentially what you're doing is you're making a gargoyle, and the gargoyle is the combination of the cinnamon and the het red xanthic, which is really visually dominant. And then you add the effect of the fire and the pastel, the firefly, to it, and it really just shatters the pattern and gives you this really interesting appearance. I actually wanted to show you one more here at the end, and that is a true gargoyle with just the combination of the cinnamon and the het red xanthic, which is kind of an interesting combination. It's one of those things where you actually take the two genes, mix them together, and you get something that looks completely different. And this, I've actually did a whole video on gargoyles, and when you work other genes into the gargoyles, sometimes the gargoyle, I'd say in most cases, it completely overwhelms a lot of the other genes, and you end up with a snake. You can definitely tell the gargoyle is in there with the combination of the cinnamon and the het red xanthic. All right, so what is time for the question of the day? And Ernie Price asks, what percentage of your female ball pythons lay eggs every year, and what is your average clutch size? And that is a very good question. So I've been breeding ball pythons for about 5 years now, and when I first started out, I think I had a little bit better luck with my females. I had about 80% of my females that laid eggs the first couple years, and this year I actually had 50%. I think it was less than 50%, and one of the reasons is because I was using several males that weren't quite old enough. I was trying to push some projects along. I was using some 1-year-old males, and it kind of bit me going into that. I definitely won't be using males that are less than 2 years old. I'd say probably the minimum for males, as far as my experience, let me tell you, is probably 2 years old. And as far as the average clutch size, I'd say usually on a brand new female just breeding for the first time at about 2 or 3 years old, normally you can expect to have anywhere from about 5 to 7 eggs. I say the average clutch size is about 6 eggs for most of your new females. And I bought some females from Morphmarket that were really big, huge females. I think I bought a bunch of those on Morphmarket, and then I bought someone's collection of 9 really big females that really boosted my collection. And let me tell you, on those females, I'll have anywhere from pretty much like 8 or 9 all the way up to 13 or 14 eggs. I've actually heard some of the bigger ones can lay 15 or 16 eggs on a really good year, which kind of throws the odds as far as the average clutch size. So that is pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.